I realized it when I was in prison. It was there that art became my solace, my comfort. Got me out of my head from the time that I had to do. The hours passed, the days passed, the weeks passed, the months passed. And with each pencil that I would touch, man, my abilities and my skill level just got better and better until, like I said, it became comfortable. My name is Manny. My choice of art is drawing and painting. As a kid, I had this gift, but I outgrew it. Drugs and alcohol became more important. The hanging out, the gangbanging, doing crime. And for some reason or other, the only time that I would ever sit down to paint or draw was when I was either in detention center or in a rehab center as a young kid. Once I walked out of those doors, I never picked up another sketch pad or another coloring pencil until I found myself back in there again. Some facilities would allow you what they called arts and crafts packages. Others wouldn't, and you will have to go through some other source, sometimes an officer, sometimes a chaplain, or the school at the prisons, and just kind of finagle and try to get what you can. And somebody will go home and have some extra pens or coloring pencils, or somebody rather smoke cigarettes than color, and they had coloring pencils, and we're barter and trade. And in prison, as hard as some things may seem hard to get, where there was a will, there was a way. You couldn't stop an inmate from getting what he needed in there.
What I'm doing right now is called a masking process. Initially, I taped all the areas that I didn't want the overspray to get into. And in the few times I've done this in the past, something always comes to mind. There is a masking process that we also use. We actually mask ourselves with substances and things that will fill that hole and that gap that we're trying to fill to avoid the way we feel. And it gets clustered, man, and it's layer after layer, and eventually, we find ourselves that we really, nothing we cover that with fulfills what it is we're really trying to accomplish. But in this process, as clustered as it seemed for a little bit, now I'm actually giving the image some life by removing the tape. It's a beautiful thing to just watch it unfold. The whole time I was painting, I said, a lot of people can't really tell the fact of what it is I'm trying to do. But at the end, you'll be able to see it well. A lot of times I was overwhelmed, especially in the early stages of staring at it and looking at the size of it and how it was gonna come out, and which way would I start. And my thoughts was just all over the place. I see starting a piece like this, man, like a huge leap of faith, not really knowing, having somewhat of a concept of where I would go with it, but not totally understanding the total outcome. And early in my recovery, it was almost the same process. I knew I needed to get clean. I knew that I wanted, to change my life, but I didn't have any clue where those decisions would actually take me later. And a few years later, here I am with this powerful statement in this piece that's called Believe.
My name's Vic James. My art is photography. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville is a very eclectic town. Call it Music City. There's a lot of musical influence in my photography and my art. I grew up in a lower income side of town, kind of more grimy, which plays a big part in the way I shoot and the type of photography that I shoot. From what I can remember, my dad always had a drug problem. My parents divorced when I was 9 years old. My mother always told me to be careful with whatever I dabble in because that addiction runs in my family, it runs through my blood. And I shrugged it off like, no, not me. I can recreationally use and that'll be the end of it. And I thought that was it. My drug of choice was his drug of choice until it could no longer be afforded. If he had pills, I would get them from him. If I had them, he would get them from me. And I would always tell him, it's okay, Dad, like, I got this. I just need it for pain. I needed to sleep. I need it for pain. I didn't think I had a problem. He didn't think I had a problem because he trusted me in what I was saying. But I knew he had a problem. We told him on several occasions. When you go from pain pills that on the street, the value it gets up there in some of these pills. Sometimes people's only resort is to go to heroin to shoot it up, and that was eventually that was his drug of choice. And I told him, I don't ever want to see you stick a needle in your arm. It'll come to fists. We'll fight about it. I was so pill sick in the end that when I saw him sticking a needle in his arm, I didn't like it, but it's like, whatever. You're getting your fix. You're taking care of whatever issues that you got to take care of the way you know how to take care of it best. And if that makes you feel comfortable, then so be it. I didn't realize that I was enabling someone who was ultimately killing themselves. I even witnessed it on several occasions, and it scared me to watch it to the point where if I couldn't afford my drug anymore, then there was no way for me to keep getting high. I didn't want to go to the needle because I saw what it was doing to him and what it was doing to my family. I didn't think I had a problem. I thought, oh, I got pain. I'm gonna kill the pain. I'm not sticking a needle in my arm. I'm just popping a couple pills. But a couple turned into 5 turned into 10, and I was up to 20, 25 pills a day, and I couldn't keep up with it monetarily. Especially when I lost my job, I was like, this is, I've done lost everything. I got to the point where all I thought about was using and copping my next cop. Just got to the point where lost hope. I didn't see a way out. I went as far as God would let me go. He wouldn't let me go. I wanted it. I didn't want to live anymore. Didn't see a purpose. Regardless of everyone around me who didn't want to see me go, I didn't want to stay. I went to see him in a rehab facility, the same one that I entered a month later. And we cried together, and I thought that was that one. I told him, I need help. I can't do it anymore. I know y'all don't know how serious the problem is, but I need help.
But it wasn't until I incorporated some of the gifts that God had given me into my recovery, I didn't feel like I had a fair chance. And I see so much talent working with some of the young people that I work with in recovery, man. All the way from musicians to artists to writers, athletes, and they can't find a way to tap into it and understand that that gift can be a valuable tool for them. My first year clean and sober, all I did was paint and go to meetings. Paint and go to meetings. Step work was a big part. But then came the kicker. God. G-O-D. Fellowship calls it higher power. Some people call it good orderly direction. I just choose to call him God. It's funny because I look to art to quiet my mind, man. When I was in chaos and mayhem, and not only did I quiet my mind, but find my spirituality as well. And it's almost here, man. I'm almost to the end of a word that probably used really freely, you know, you believe, you know. I don't think most people truly understand in the sense of you believing in yourself, and when you just feel in your spirit that somebody else also believes in you. I've encountered some disappointments, man, discouraging moments in my recovery, and let me tell you, the thought that some people believed in me was at times good enough for me to just keep moving and keep trying. And I think, you know, that was it's a big part of my success, man. You know, not that I'm all there, but I'm well on my way, and that I believe.
And my question to myself was, what's the only thing in this world that allows you the ability to sit still? And it was art. After I got out of prison, you know, and I started, you know, going back to rehabs and detoxes, I would always pack a sketch pad and some coloring pencils before I even put what little bit of clothes I had at that moment into my bag, or, you know, whatever it is I was packing it in, because sometimes it wasn't a bag, you know, it was a grocery bag. I remember even in prison having this peace come over me every time I would sit down to paint. But here I am in a free society, and I couldn't find that peace for nothing in the world. And at that moment, I kind of placed myself in a cell in my own home, which was my garage at that time. And I painted myself out of a corner. I haven't stopped since. Some of my earliest pieces, man, they were definitely dark. A lot of pain, you know, the teardrops, prison towers, the chain link fences, the hourglass, the praying hands, you know, the typical, you know, prison art, lowrider art, Chicano art type. And its way, it was a way of expressing myself of what I was feeling at the moment. You know, it was later on, a few years ago, that I started to add some substance to my art. I started adding the recovery, God's grace, adding colors, not making them so grayish anymore. I used an arsenal of acrylics, coloring pencils, graphite pencils, which are black and white, different shades of grays. That snowballed into writing as well. My first form of self-expression was art. Before I could speak or narrate or tell a story, I think I was painting the story. There had to be an outlet, foremost, of the emotions and the feelings that were coming out through my art. The more I did the painting, I think the birth of writing started to come to be, and that led into what we're doing now, film production, me, you know, writing a book, etc. So, you know, it all started at one point. You know, I want to say it was when I got clean, because that's when I realized that I was going to start drawing and painting for a long time.
I discovered photography probably 15 years ago. I had a custom car that I did sound systems in, and my uncle bought me a camera. I would take it with me to every show, and I was like, man, I like the way that car looks. Man, those rims are nice. So I would just snap photos, and I started seeing these angles that I was hitting these cars at, and I got everything developed. It's not like nowadays, you know, we got digital, we can erase it, or we just put it on a computer, and it, you know, our computers end up like a graveyard for photos that never get seen, and they just die out. I got hundreds of pictures of stuff. I would take anything from pictures of my niece and nephews to, you know, a random brick wall. I'd go to the mountains of Tennessee and take pictures of the mountains, and you know, I just liked it was therapeutic. I want the center of the photo, what catches your eye, to be something totally off left field. Every photo's got that straight down spot that you would think people would gravitate towards, but I'll find something off in the near distance to catch your eye. I'll find different angles, and then once I get into my zone of editing, I'll find what angle I like best and what I think best tells a story about that particular item, place in that photo. When I was back in Nashville, it was the buildings. Every time I see photos of Nashville, I seen the same pics of the same areas that everybody takes. I'd go up on the highest buildings. I would get down as low as I could to take different angles of some of these same areas. If I search an area and I don't see any images, I'm going and shooting it. I've had my pictures used many a times in blogs and publications. The images were used because they weren't the same. They weren't the norm. Architecture was big. I like West Palm down here in Lake Worth. They got some good old buildings. I like abandoned graffiti. Right now it's just sunrises, sunsets. You know, there's a misunderstanding I have with my mind that takes me to a place where, you know, often I still don't feel like being here. Do I think I would act on any kind of suicidal tendencies? Not so much anymore. I would hope not. I pray that I don't. But ultimately, I'm not in control of that. But the reason I say that is just like a musician records a song, musicians that have gone on and died and left their catalog, we still rejoice at the sound of those songs. This area is going to change eventually. They may dig up things and build new buildings. You know, I can take a snapshot of something that eventually could be forgotten, and I can own it for a lifetime. And people still, they revisit my pictures over and over again. They're like, man, I remember that day. I remember that wall, that graffiti on that wall that now has been painted over. You know, now there's a skyscraper that sits where this small diner used to be, but you got a picture of that diner. You know, that picture could go on for 100 years, so on. So the only reason I think about death in that sense is, you know, the fact that, you know, what I leave behind, what kind of legacy I leave behind. I always joke with myself, it's like, you know, okay, whenever I die, you know, I'm gonna leave a legacy, and it's gonna consist of thousands of pictures. When you Google me, you know, my images are gonna pop up, and you're gonna get to see what I see on a daily basis.
Hello.
I came down here on June 15th, and I got a call that he was in the hospital brain dead. Then I flew back to Nashville to bury him. He would on several occasions tell me, you know, to not be like him, to not, don't stick a needle in your arm. He would let me know how bad it was. And it's weird, my mother brought my dad to the treatment center to visit me, and it was the first time I'd seen my parents together in 20 some odd years, holding hands. Like, it just felt weird seeing it, and brought my brother, my niece and nephews, and they saw me in that setting, and I felt like a family again. And me and my dad we used to fish together. That was our thing, and we hadn't done it in years, and we fished. And we all caught fish in the pond at the treatment center. And that was the last time I would see him. That right there, if that ain't enough to keep me clean, I don't know what is.
I think my personal relationship with God is what carried me, because this is not something that Manny chose to do. I still question God, why do you want me to do these things? Why did you pick me? I might never find the answer. I just know that today I'm at a moment where I envisioned this event taking place and a few months ago, and it's actually unfolded today. This is an exhibit titled Lake Worth It. We're going to be speaking about our community, our city. We're going to be raising money for Catalyst, a youth ministry, hip-hop youth ministry at that, and it's not easy, man. It's not easy. Setting up, reaching out to people, selling T-shirts, promoting it, marketing it, and at the end today, man, we'll get to see what this is all about.
Me and one of my good friends, we were talking about putting this together, and he mentioned something that was, taking place while he was playing basketball or was at the park, and he was watching some kids playing, and the Lake Worth It, kind of was born there with, some of the youth from this community. And we said, okay, that's the name that we're gonna name this exhibit. Now, me being from right here, I've done some living here in Lake Worth, man. I've been arrested here. I've been evicted from multiple apartments. I've been convicted. I've ripped and ran these streets, man. A few years ago, God came into my life, man, and he put some good people in my life as well, man. And my perception changed. I started seeing Lake Worth as a place of arts, music, praise, like what we do here, recovery, besides the palm trees and the beaches, which is always a beautiful thing. We wanted to start a movement, where our city's not called Lake Worthless anymore. I don't think nobody's worthless, man. I know I felt that way before, but, we shouldn't feel that way. We all got a purpose in life, man. We just need to find it.
I actually went to middle school here and then high school. Whatever anybody's got to say about Lake Worthless, it's not. It's a very cool little town. Probably one of the most beautiful little towns that I've ever been to. I want to thank Manny so much. Not known Manny for a long time because I really don't have anybody else in my life that reminds me about my recovery. And it's a daily battle for me. And I just want to say thank you to Manny.
Well, we wanted to work on our first documentary, and it was challenging because neither one of us knew anything about film production or how we was going to do this. We just knew we had some powerful stories that needed to be shared, and we wanted to share it in the non-traditional form, which is the 12-step fellowship, meeting places. I could have probably had every excuse in the world why I couldn't do one. At the moment, I probably had like 6-7 months clean and sober. I didn't have a car, didn't have a license. I wasn't financially set, you know, to go out on a project like this, but, you know, the fire was deep, and, you know, finally we got a producer, and, you know, we started shooting with, you know, the camera that he had, and, you know, we did it, man. You know, we did a little release party outside in the parking lot. We must have had like 100 people come and show up, and we released it on social media and on YouTube. And little would I know, man, what was about to take place in my life. Immediately, I started getting hits from rehab centers that wanted for us to come and speak at their facility and talk to their clients and show our films. That was the beginning. And right after that, man, it was like the fire was getting hotter, man. Like the true addict that I am, you know, I needed to feel some more of what just transpired in the last few months. And we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do a woman's documentary, just ladies, you know. I wanted to hear their stories, you know. Here's the moment we were all waiting for. For real? Hold on. Man, no preparation, no nothing. Both of y'all come here. This is Maria from the For Real Women's Documentary, and Jesse. We're here today at the Lake Worth Art Exhibit, man, you know, just catching up a little bit.
Well, still sober.
Absolutely.
3.5 years, by the grace of God. Thank you for all the support.
Cool, man. That's what's up, man. Y'all heard it, man. You know,
Short and sweet.
still here. That's all that matters.
Finishing that project, releasing it, and getting nominated to our first film festival, the Real Recovery Film Festival, and watching our movie coming to a big screen in a movie theater, and, you know, our names getting featured and, you know, articles, etc. Man, it was, that was the moment. We're 3 films in and 1 in the works. The last documentary that we did was children's story, and the third one was personal because my daughter was in it. That also, we got to watch in big screens, and we actually got to watch it 2nd year in a row at the Recovery Film Festival, and in our own hometown, the LW Lake Worth Film Festival. You know, sometimes we start things, or we have a passion for something, or we have a dream, and it's hard to fuel it. It's hard to keep it going. It's hard to keep that fire burning.
When he walked up to me and told me why he wanted to buy it, I realized right then and there, other people have a story that may not have been heard. It's just one of those shots that when I tell someone the story, it's weird to see people get teary-eyed when you tell them a story behind your photo. The image I sold was, it was done at a cemetery at one of my good friends' gravesite. He committed suicide. And his brother was knelt down with his hands over his head. You know, I just happened to just capture him in a moment of like, I still can't believe my brother's gone. And C told me, you know, I feel this. I've been there. I've been in that situation. I've got to have this. It's kind of emotional because I sold posters on eBay when I had an eBay store, but this was from a gallery. This is from a customer walking up and meeting and greeting me. It was just a proud moment. The first thing I did was took a picture of him with the print and sent it to my mom. And you know, being told by your parent, they're proud of you for what you're doing, especially after overcoming a real bad addiction, is very promising.
You know, going into this exhibit, there's a particular piece that I want to talk about. It's called Came to Believe. It was later changed over, I think in 1955 by the Grapevine, into The Man in the Bed. Everybody knows the story of Bill and Bob and the third alcoholic, but the artist, his name is Robert M. He was a volunteer in the 50s for AA, and he did this painting where Dr. Bob and Bill W. reached out to a suffering alcoholic in a hospital bed. And even though it wasn't made for AA, I think the picture speaks some volumes about life in general, you know, about outreach, about being of service, about helping your fellow brothers, about loving thy neighbor, that really, you know, depicts what the art of recovery is. And, you know, when I went into this program and I seen this piece, it instantly grabbed me. One of my visions and dreams is to be able to see more art programs in our treatment centers, whether they be inpatient, residential, or intensive outpatient, or partial hospitalization. I think it's something that feeds the soul. Looking back at some of my art from rehab and prison and, you know, detox, in particular, you know, this one facility, you know, the Homeless Assessment Center. At that moment in my life, I was homeless. I did a drawing there that one of the staff members, who's a dear friend, she took that drawing and took it to a 12-step committee for an upcoming convention, and that drawing was picked as a logo, and it was actually auctioned off. Of course, you know, I had great plans once I got out of there, so I didn't make it to that convention. But that drawing came and haunted me. 3 or 4 years later, working in a rehab center, staff member remembered my name, and she says, I got one of your art drawings in my phone today. And she looks at me every time she sees me, she just smiles. If it wasn't for art, I would be doing what everybody else is doing around society and in these rooms of recovery. And I've done that. I've done that in the past, many a times. I think every minute and every hour that I would spend in a project was a minute and an hour that kept me off the streets, that kept me out of my head. Not that I was antisocial, but I always thought differently than everybody else. And the only people that I could really get along with were ex-convicts. If you ain't never been to prison, or you weren't never, you know, living, you know, a hardcore street life, I couldn't get along with you. I didn't relate to you. The art kind of secluded me into finding my own self foremost. You know, today I'm the most sociable person. Today I can talk to pastors, I can talk to ministers, I can talk to school teachers, I can talk to attorneys, I can talk to judges, I can talk to addicts, alcoholics. I can even speak in a large crowd. 3 years ago, I couldn't even talk to myself because all I had was noise to speak and inside of my head.
There's going to be influences any town you go to. You know, if I fall victim to those influences, you know, I fall back into that trap. You know, drugs and alcohol is everywhere, and watching my dad's health deteriorate, and you know, you don't seem like you're seeing the same person anymore. You just know that if they're going down that road, and you're taking those same steps, eventually that's how you end up. And I've had best friends who've killed themselves, who've overdosed, having my dad overdose, friends who dealt drugs that are in prison. I see where I would end up. And you know, my mom is like my best friend, and no mom should ever have to endure any of that. No mom should ever have to bury their child, and no mom should ever have to visit their child while they're incarcerated. Addiction to me is you know, it's cunning and baffling. Like it really takes you down a road that, you know, it's a dead end with a cliff at the end. And I just reached that point, and luckily I didn't take that dive. I sought help.
And as you can see, it's very delicate and patient process to peel back all these layers of tape so we can bring it to life. And once again, it takes me back into my recovery. How the steps started to peel all those layers of stuff that I was accumulating over the years, man, trying to cover up a feeling, a pain, an emotion. One of the things that I hope that I can give to you guys in this film is the fact that we're all gifted. We're fighting something that's beyond us, man. You know, the literature says, you know, it's cunning, powerful, and baffling. And anything that you can use to add substance to your recovery and enforce it and give you a little bit more strength, you know, you should use. I can't help but it, you know, as I'm doing this, to kind of like look back to the last month and a half of just working on it and reaching this point where I have to be done with this in 2 weeks. And I'm actually talking about it for this particular documentary. Probably saying to yourself, man, I don't know nothing about art, I don't know nothing about painting, I don't know nothing about mixing colors. I sucked in art school. You know, I did too, man. The real artist is not the one who sits here with, you know, art supplies. You know, the real artist is the one who can envision, whether it be a dream, and execute it, man, without giving up. You know, pushing through moments of despair, anxiety, confusion. You didn't give up. You didn't stop. You kept at it until you were able to see the finished product. It's gonna be all right, man. You know, recovery was a lot like that for me, man. Today, yeah, it is okay. It's gonna be all right. You know, I truly, truly, truly believe that.
I kind of look at it like I'm documenting my life and this new life that I feel like I've been given. I feel like I'm a totally different person, a new person. God's allowed me to wake up and see another day. I look back on some of the photos that I've shot over the years, and I'm like, man, I wish I could get that moment back, even though I can't. But I can look at those images and go back to a place where I once was and enjoy those happy moments. And I've been given a second chance to appreciate those small things, like taking a photograph, and not to take those sunrises and sunsets for granted. Say, you know, it could be my last one.
Art gave me the ability to express myself at a moment where I really couldn't, and if I didn't use that outlet, I might have gone back out to the streets. That's what art did to me. We need arts and crafts programs. You know, we need substance. We need real art. Crayolas ain't doing it. Getting outside of our head with creative thinking, creative arts, it's what will help. Traditional works for some people. Being the addict that I was, and the way that I schemed into my addiction and alcoholism, I had to get real creative and outside the box. When I applied that into my recovery with the 12 steps, something happened. Something happened. I've come across some of the most talented young kids, ranging from guitar players to pianists to poets. And for the 30 days, 60 days that they sit in treatment, a therapist should be able to see that that's something that they could actually attach to that individual's treatment plan and give them a better edge for when those times come, you know, and you can't sit still and nothing else is working. You know, that writing pad or that sketch pad might be the one thing that saved that person's life at that moment. If it helps 1% of the client population going through that program, just 1%, it'll be well worth it. That's something coming out of them. that's something coming out of them that the therapists don't understand, that the program director doesn't understand, that the case manager doesn't understand. And I believe with just an extra small push, you know, we can give this person, you know, an extra advantage in their journey, man, and, you know, finding themselves. You know, people who come to rehab don't come to rehab because they found themselves. You know, they come to rehab because they're lost. I'm hoping that, you know, it's not just what I'm speaking that will capture you. I know for me, what captured me early in my recovery wasn't people who spoke, but it was stuff that I saw, things that, you know, became visual to me, that came in through my eyes and not my ears. Those are the things that stuck to me and that I grasped and held on to. The being able to listen part came to me later. And today I'm listening, speaking, painting, writing, filming. Doesn't stop, man. Doesn't stop.
Nowadays, I truly value, I value my family, my friends, my relationships. You know, I truly value the way I treat someone. I truly value the way I'm treated. Stuff that money can't buy, stuff that, you know, just living to live and not living to die.
Recovery is an art form. You know, for me, you know, recovery has given me the ability, man, to not only design these beautiful pictures, but to actually design, you know, the kind of life that I'm living today, man.
Since we met, amazed by the grace you share with this wretch. You stare at this wretch, you're dead man that I am, with a future and a hope in your plans. Thanks, haven't found another love that's better yet, and I won't pay the debt that I owed on the cross. So I'll follow you, Lord. Of course, you're my reward. Forever I will worship and adore you. The times my heart was hurting, filled with darkness in my life, was lethargic in my life. It was hard for me to fight till I called your name, man. You brought that spark into the night. That light was real bright. Then I started living right. It's been a fight ever since. All my sins washed away. Temptation is crazy, but praise God you make a way of escape. You opened the gate and accepted the sinner and saved him by grace. Hey, I give my life up to follow all of your ways. You gave your life up to sorrow. Grace was shed. Ever the troubles may rise up and the storm won't cease. Still I Lord, I just can't explain the way that you changed my life and my ways, took away all the pain. The thoughts that remain to bring pain to my brain. You poured down the rain and washed away all the stains. I'm amazed at this grace that you share, how you care, how you love, how you stare at my heart everywhere that I go. So I know that I'll never let go of this love that we hold. I'm in love with you so good, King. What you did changed the way that I live. Your love is so pure, my life is all yours. I'm gonna stand tall, try my best not to fall. Lord, you're all that I needed and more. More than enough is your love. Think of me, so you pour your blessings from heaven and won't close the door. The King of the kings and the Lord of the lords. Forever I will worship and adore you. I give my life up to fall. storm won't cease. Still I worship you. I give my life up to follow all of your ways. You gave your life up through sorrow. Grace was shed. And though the troubles may rise up and the storm won't cease, still I worship you. Storms keep on coming, nothing unusual. You promised tribulation, but you said that you will get it.